Hello, Math 9 people. That's you. This is your homework for tonight to watch videos on YouTube. I know, you already thought I was the best teacher in the world, and now you know it. So, we're going to be looking at 3.2 today and tomorrow, or I guess Wednesday and Thursday. It's kind of a big section, and it's a little bit tricky, so please pay very close attention and do what I tell you to do. Okay? Because there are 6 different exponent laws that you need to be familiar with, not to memorize them and say what they are, but to apply them in any given situation with very little a delay. In other words, you need to be on the ball the whole time. The good thing is, for the most part, they're pretty intuitive. In other words, once you kind of write out a simple example, they become pretty obvious. So consider an example like this here. Okay, 3 to the power of 2 times 3 to the power of 3. And if you were to write that out in expanded form, 3 squared is just 3 times 3, and then times 3 cubed, so 3 times 3 times 3. In other words, it's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is the same as saying 3 to the power of 5. Okay, and hopefully you can see that if I were to just do it in one step, I can see if I'm multiplying powers, so long as they have the same base, I can just keep the base the same and add the exponents. So 2 plus 3, in other words, 3 to the power of 5. Okay? And you can even confirm it on your calculator. If you go 3 squared times 3 to the power of 3, it'll be 3 to the power of 5. Well, it'll give you some massive number, but it'll be 3 to the power of 5. Okay? And that applies also when your base is not an integer, but a variable. Like, for example, x to the power of 6 times x to the power of 2. So just like before, when we are multiplying powers with the same base, keep the base the same and add the exponent like that. Okay, so really quickly, just you don't have to write it down, but just say it in your head. I'll give you 3 seconds to figure out what the answer to these questions are. Go. Okay, so you should look at the first one, and again, our base stays the same, so x to the power, or yeah, just x, and to the power of 3 plus 8, which is 11, and then this last one here, y to the power of 15. The exponent on the second term here is not 0, the exponent here is 1. We don't write it, but we know it's there, and so the exponent there would be y to the power of 16 then, okay? And so that's our first exponent law that you have to know, and that is a to the power of m times a to the power of n is just a to the power of m plus n. In other words, when you're multiplying powers, add exponents. Okay? That's that one there done. Let's look at a different one very closely related to this, and that is dividing powers. I bet you can probably guess what you already do. So say you have, for example, 4 to the power of 3 divided by 4 to the power of 2. If you write that out in expanded form, it looks like that. And whenever you have a number divided by itself, it equals 1. So this divided by this is 1. This divided by that is 1. And you're left with 4. We don't write it, but to the power of 1. And so you probably guessed it already then. Let's just do one more, though. If I gave you x to the power of 11 over x to the power of 7, do you think you can guess the answer? That's right. It's x to the power of 4, and which means that our second, number 2, exponent law is this. A to the power of m divided by a to the power of n is equal to a to the power of a minus n. In other words, when you're dividing powers, you subtract exponents. Keep the base the same and subtract exponents. So far we have multiply powers, add exponents, divide powers, subtract exponents, and so that leaves just to do one other one, which is a super duper easy one. Here it is here. If you're to look at this one, why don't you do this one right now, quickly. I mean, you can pause the video, but you know. Okay, well, you should recognize that it's y to the power of 6 divided by y to the power of 6, which anything divided by itself is just 1. But if you use the exponent law we just finished doing, it's y to the power of 6 minus 6, which is y to the power of 0, and it is the same thing as 1. In other words, anything to the power of 0 is 1. And that's our third exponent law. Anything to a to the power of 0 is 1, so long as a is not 0. Okay? So I know that was really quickly, so the next video we're going to try some examples and see if you can do your stuff. Here we go.